to Cyber Sidekicks, the weekly cybersecurity podcast hosted by Richmond Advisory Group's principal analysts, namely me, Christina Richmond.
And me, Rory Duncan. This podcast is your go-to partner for understanding the cybersecurity market, industry trends, and the real-world challenges of protecting organizations today. Hello, Christina.
Hey, Rory. How are you today?
Well, as you heard earlier, I'm in a bit of a rant with health service bureaucracy and so on. But then, as you pointed out, hey, nothing's new. And even when you have to pay for it all, it doesn't run any smoother. So I am slightly chastised, but there we go. I'll be okay tomorrow. It's just, when you're faced with bureaucracy and, oh, you're not on the system. Why have I got like 30 messages from you? I must be on the system. Oh, well, that's fine.
I must be.
Yeah, come in and I'll print a form out. You can fill it out. I'm like, what is this? Is this like medieval times? Are you going to give me a feather, with a quill and some ink?
I'm always surprised that the digital healthcare records that we check in advance for our appointments, and we do everything online, and then we show up and they say, here's the paper. Yeah. Do it again.
That's right. And it's because, it's great because they make it all digitally and then they print them out for us. Hooray, to be digitized again. Anyway. So that's me. And you, how about you?
Oh, yes. It's a bit of a gray day here in the inland Northwest, and that's lovely, actually. We've had very warm weather, lots of sun, and then today it's much cooler and a little bit of rain, and it's a lovely respite from the heat. My garden is thanking the gods, the weather gods.
Nice, nice. Fine. So
hey, what are we doing this week? I mean, let's tell the folks what we're up to. I know we have a great guest coming on. I know we're talking about OWASP's Agentic AI SecOps framework and vendor landscape. And this is something our guest Rock Lambros from several weeks ago. He has his own company now called Rock Cyber. He is deeply involved with OWASP and their agentic AI efforts to put their arms around it. So we'll be looking at that framework. What else do we have going on?
Yeah, we're going to dip our toes into the murky waters of digital sovereignty, which, of course, rages back and forth depending on who you talk to and, well, what else is happening around the world. But specifically in this case, how the Cloud Act may or may not be a factor in decisions around which providers you want to contract with for storing and protecting your data. The debate rages, so we'll be talking a little bit more about that. And then
that's interesting. Yeah. And then we have Paul Farrington, Chief Product Officer at Glasswall, coming to chat about zero trust, content disarm and reconstruction, among other things. Yeah, I think it'll be a great show. I'm really looking forward to the debate, the murky waters about digital sovereignty. I'm also really, really interested in the agentic AI framework discussion. And then I haven't met Paul. You've met him, correct?
Yes, I think.
Yeah, so well, edit that out.
I'm trying to remember. I know. Isn't that like, we're so prepared. But I might have met his colleague who then said, Oh, no, maybe I did. I can't remember. I should probably find out before we speak with him.
No.
How are you doing?
Hey,
I haven't seen you for, ever. Literally.
It's the blanket statement. So lovely to see you.
Again,
so lovely to chat.
Yes. Anyway, so what else is happening? We've got just a quick reminder about our monthly newsletter, Signal, Not Noise, which you can sign up for on our website. So that's richmondadvisorygroup.com. What do the folks get when they subscribe, Christina?
Well, they get the newsletter, and it actually is going to come out in the next couple of days. So, by the airing of this podcast, the newest issue will be out. So please do sign up. And we'll also send you a little gift, 4-page extract from our recent AI security survey update, looking at how prepared CISOs, C-suite, and senior IT practitioners are in facing AI-powered attacks and what would help them to prepare. So yeah, sign up at richmondadvisorygroup.com. Down on the bottom of the home page, there's a little box, and away we go.
Let's talk about OWASP.
Okay, let's.
Yeah, so we've mentioned this on the show before. At the top of the show, you mentioned that our friend of the show, Rock Lambros from Rock Cyber, talked a little bit about this when he was on a few weeks ago, and a lot of this was announced and showed for the first time at the recent Black Hat. So what the OWASP team have done, they have a practice for AI security, as they have with different areas, or they call them project areas, I think. And the one they've got out most recently is the Agentic AI SecOps framework, which, in their own words, addresses the evolving security demands of next-gen AI systems as they transition from simple LLM calls, which is, of course, the basic way that they interact, so transitioning from that to fully autonomous multi-agent architectures, which, of course, is all about the agentic AI technologies that we've also been discussing over the last few months. Now, the objective of this initiative or this framework is to promote secure agentic AI development, ensuring that organizations can maintain security, reliability, compliance, and auditability while safely embracing the capabilities of agentic AI. So, what do you think, Christina?
Well, it's a very fast-moving space, and we had an interesting chat with Mark Hughes a couple of weeks ago, where he is, predicting that the future will be perhaps fully automated, that security won't even be, in a good way, it won't be the headline, it won't be the big issue. It'll be still incredibly important and central to the functioning of everything, all of our digital infrastructure, but that it won't be the headline because there will be this automation at the core. And that prediction is predicated on the fact that companies like IBM, where Mark is, have created things that are autonomous machine interfaces that work using agentic AI to cull through vast amounts of data, summarize it using Gen AI, then correlate it using other agents across your infrastructure, across your SOC, if you will, bring together all of this into a neat little package and say, here's what the incident looks like, where it came from, what the ports are that were affected, the actors that might be involved. Here it's mapped to MITRE, on and on and on. And would you like me to take an action on this? And that is that next step that Mark is predicting will happen, where you will get comfortable enough with it, like we've gotten comfortable using cloud, right, over the couple of decades now. And you'll get comfortable enough with it that, boom, you'll just have everything automated based on these agents doing the work for you. So I've been very scared about this. You know this, Rory. I think it's absolutely fantastic that OWASP is working to get their arms around SecOps, because we saw, we've seen many SOC robots, I've been jokingly calling them, but Atom, the autonomous threat operations machine that IBM has put together, Palo has their own, others, CrowdStrike, everyone is starting to build these agentic tools. But who is getting in at the ground floor, looking at the development of them, looking at the code that they're built on, and who is looking at those non-human identities as they proliferate, because agents are doing the mission of creating things on our behalf, and they can create new identities.
Yeah, it's complex. We've certainly learned that. It's complex and evolving almost too quickly for us to keep up with. And hence I think why frameworks and guidance on process like this is really, really important. I won't go through all of the details of it, but I'll put the link to it in the notes, and I'd really, really, really encourage you guys to take a look, download it. It's graphical, it's very well laid out and well described. It breaks the things down into key processes, so model development, deployment, maintenance, build and govern, and then creates the categories. So like any good kind of taxonomy or a guide, it provides a kind of a breakdown of what's involved. So I would recommend you have a look at that. As I said in our show notes, it's kind of like herding cats. I wouldn't want to do this particular job because it's, what OWASP are doing are dealing with a rapidly evolving and changing landscape. However, good for them for doing it because there are so many vendors and so many features that are coming to market so quickly. It's very difficult to keep track of it. So
it's really a great document. And the thing that strikes me in looking at it is how many companies are involved at each of those different stages, but how few actually are in that area that I said I was scared of, the development and experiment phase. There are 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 7. And we've talked with one of them. And so this is a shout out to Stryker. We've talked with them, had a briefing from them. Very interesting company. Stryker is spelled with AI in the middle of it. So Stryker, if you were to do it phonetically, but I think they pronounce it Stryker. Interesting startup serial entrepreneurs who are taking a go at this. And they do get into the code. And then Pensar, Noma, Pillar, Troge AI, and MindGuard, they're all involved in that develop and experiment phase. But most of the companies are operating in kind of the test and evaluate or the monitor and govern spaces. And that's fine. It's kind of path of least resistance. It's a good place to start. But the really difficult work in my mind is going to be the SAST and DAST testing in the SDLC and the code, looking at how these agents are, what kind of policies, what kind of guardrails have we given them as they start to create new identities or new services or what have you. So it's a really interesting start. I think they've done some terrific work identifying these different stages, looking at companies that are in the stages. They don't have everyone in here. I mean, I noticed some folks missing whom we've chatted with, but I think you point out, don't you, that, we had Zenity here on the show, I don't know, a couple months ago, and they're in 6 of the categories, right?
Exactly. And Noma are in all of them, all 8 or 9. Which shows the extent. But it is the case that there is this overlap in many ways. How do you tease that out as to how extensively these vendors cover it or not? And to your point about, some of the most populated categories or areas that were, a good start, perhaps the least difficult to tackle. One that intrigues me the most is the category called augment and fine-tune data, of which there's only 4 vendors listed. And in OWASP's Agentic AI SecOps framework diagram, it's quite a short description of what's in there. And it says it is apply differential privacy or obfuscation on sensitive knowledge injected into agent memory. That's quite a lot to unpack, as they would say. But it clearly shows that these areas where there's not many vendors involved are probably where things will develop a lot more, because they're quite nuanced, they're quite specialized, and will require certain skills and capabilities. So we look forward to that.
Really, really fascinating space to keep watching, and love to have many of these companies on and have them chat about these different areas. We are going to have Rock back on to talk about this in more depth in a few weeks. So stay tuned for that, folks.
Yeah, thanks for that. So Christina, the next story was about data and digital sovereignty, which that old chestnut again, yes. And this one, it's about kind of a spat that's happened between Microsoft and OVH Cloud, one of the big Europe-based hosting firms. And the headline is Microsoft can't guarantee data sovereignty, and OVH Cloud says, "We told you so." And this is a story from the Register. And this is from an interview that the Register did with some folk at OVH Cloud, who, as they say, have long warned about the risks of relying on foreign tech giants for critical infrastructure, especially when it comes to data sovereignty. And the reason this has come up again, because the story's been updated, this is because OVH Cloud had been pursuing Microsoft, asking them some questions about could they guarantee that customer data would remain protected from, let's say, US government access requests because of the Cloud Act. And the reason that this sort of tickled me a little bit, because OVH Cloud's chief legal officer, Solange Viegas dos Reis, said they finally told the truth. It's not a surprise, she shrugs. We already knew that. And I thought that was probably the most Gallic kind of response you could have to that statement, that she shrugs her shoulders. It is not a surprise. We already knew that. But,
yes,
I think it's kind of a French thing, as it is in terms of
is.
the pride in terms of sovereignty and having homegrown technology talent that can host, French data in a French cloud in France. That's nothing new, but it reflects that. And the reason why is because the Director of Public and Legal Affairs at Microsoft France, a chap called Anton Carniot, made the admission during a hearing in the country in answer to whether he could guarantee that data on French citizens would not be transferred to the US government without the explicit agreement of the French authorities. Carniot replied, "No, I cannot guarantee it," but added that the scenario had never happened before. Now, this is nothing new, right? This debate has been going backwards and forwards for a long time. However, I wanted to clarify something here, and I've added that in the notes, at the fact that actually it's not about whether the company is headquartered in the US or not. It's about whether a company does business in the US. So OVH also does business in the US, right? They have customers there, so the Cloud Act would cover them also, although OVH says that this would only apply to customers of their US entity, so in theory. So I think it's not as easy to just point the finger at the big US headquartered tech giants, because of course many European and British and Asian companies also do business in the US. So my point behind this was, if you want to have zero exposure to the Cloud Act or any of the other sort of sovereign acts, you have to have a provider who has no US business operations and so on. So, there are some companies in Switzerland or in Brazil or wherever who are very, very kind of insular, keep all their data within the country, are completely independent from other nations, etc. But that's kind of going to extreme. And while that is a possibility, I think the point that the Register was making and others have made is, yeah, it can be an intention, but it's a very, very difficult thing to do. There isn't really the kind of infrastructure to host, millions and millions of new customers in these completely sovereign, secure environments. There isn't really the infrastructure or the data center space to do so. So I thought that was interesting. It's the two sides of the argument, right?
It is two sides of the argument, and it's a fascinating discussion. It's one we'll continue to have, not just because of data sovereignty in and of itself, but also the geopolitical tensions that have occurred over, time forever. But also just specifically in the last few years, we've seen many countries becoming a bit more nationalist in their verbiage, but then still doing business globally. And it is, once you've opened up the globalization door, which we did 20, 30 years ago, it's hard to close it. And so you make a really good point that OVH, that is casting aspersions on Microsoft, and there's good reason, also does business in the US. So they're not above the possibility of leaking their customers' data as well. So, yeah,
exactly.
Fascinating story. Thanks for that, Rory.
Sure.
Appreciate it.
Sure. This week's special guest is Paul Farrington, Chief Product Officer at Glasswall. Hi, Paul. Welcome. Thanks for being on the show.
Hey, Rory. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
A couple of things we wanted just to chat with you about. We haven't had you on before, but we don't really know that much about Glasswall, so perhaps you could talk a little bit about that. But I think probably the first question we would ask about is, from a security perspective, what keeps you up at night?
Well, I'm glad that you kind of prefaced that with the security aspect, because I thought if it's, what keeps me up at night on a personal level, then being a man of around about 50 years of age, there are certain things that keep me up and wake me up, having to go to the bathroom. But if it's just security in nature,
Oh,
then I
thank
think,
goodness. Yes, please.
yeah,
Just security.
I'll stay with that. Then I think I guess it's the rate of change of how the environment is evolving. There's never been an easier time or a more productive time for the bad actor to be able to conceive ways in which they can attack organizations, to create novel malware that hasn't been seen before, or hasn't, so it's not been detected. So-called zero-day attacks that might be presented to organizations. And if you're a CISO, if you're the Chief Information Security Officer, how do you deal with that? In fact, how do we deal with that as an organization that is, job one for us is security and making sure that we're protecting our perimeter, our boundaries, keeping our customers' data safe, our employees as well. So we're no different in that respect to all the other organizations and companies that inhabit the world. But the pace of change is bewildering for many, so that brings opportunity, of course, for sure. But it also brings challenges where budget envelopes aren't necessarily increasing for organizations. The security team often has to do more with less. And what they can't necessarily afford to do is keep on layering more tools and software to try and detect issues. And so how do we conceive ways in which we can help our customers to address those threats and encounter maybe bad malicious AI that can be used today to create those threats that potentially could penetrate organizations. So, as I say, that brings opportunity for Glasswall, but it's hard. It's a hard problem to solve. We think we're ahead of that, and we've got lots to offer our customers. But that's something, to be absolutely honest with you, which is concerns me and my team as to how we can ensure that we're serving our customers to the best of our abilities.
Well, that is a lot to unpack, Paul. I can see why it might keep you up at night. I mean, I think we didn't get further than maybe the first couple of minutes, and AI has been brought to the forefront, and that is
Yes,
definitely
indeed.
one of the concerning factors out there. So you're very focused on zero trust and file-based threats, and I find that really interesting. I know you also, Glasswell does DLP and other things that are more traditional, but it's very unique to have a conversation for us around this content disarm and reconstruction, or CDR, and looking at file-based threats and the solutions to them and how that weaves in with zero trust. So I'd love it if you could explain to our listeners what that is. And I went and watched a bunch of videos and read your website, and so I kind of get it, but I think it would be really interesting for our listeners to learn what you mean when you say file-based threats and then file-based security solutions like CDR.
Yeah, sure. I'll try and break that down, Christina. So I think it's probably fair to say there's been a resurgence in zero trust architectures since President Biden's exec order from 2021, and I think that the majority of that vision has survived within President Trump's administration. The likes of the U.S. Army, the Navy, all have policy documents around zero trust, and the likes of GSA, CISA, NIST in the US. These are all organizations which are promoting the adoption of zero trust. So the principles survive. I think zero trust has been around for quite some time. So the father of zero trust, John Kindervag, he's been promoting the adoption of zero trust for quite some time. And it's probably fair to say that many when they think about zero trust, will perhaps think about the physical network layer, jumping on the needs, which is important for network segmentation, separating networks that don't need to be connected and where they are connected, making sure that at that trust boundary, you have ways of mediating the flow of data, maybe by separating protocols or closing or opening ports, that kind of thing. So that's not new. That's very much familiar to most security teams. I used to work at a company that focused on application security, and they would have thought of their mission as being zero trust, but in a way that's quite different to what I've just mentioned. They're focusing on the network layer, where they're ensuring that development teams were focused on securing the application. So, treating all inputs as non-trusted and making sure that, when a request was made to the software, the application, that that software application kind of stood back and said, well, and says to itself, I shouldn't really trust this request. I shouldn't assume that this is, coming from an innocent user. I'm going to assume that whatever request I receive, whether that's say a REST API request or it's a packet of data which is uploaded or an object, that I'm going to not trust the input and to sanitize anything that I receive, so that effectively that data which is then received is not going to be able to kind of jump out of that sandbox effectively within the application. And so, moving on from, say, focusing on software and protecting applications, and what Glasswall is doing is really to protect the files and to really specifically look at the data that is contained in business files. So thinking about PDFs and Office documents, but also images and movie files, the files that you and I interact with on a daily basis. Because yes, you can have scripts, effectively software that can exist in those files. In the case of, say, JavaScript or VBA, Visual Basic for applications in Office files, or ActiveX controls as well. So there's a long list of different types of arbitrary code that can be executed in files, and often they're included for absolutely innocent and business-driven reasons to help to improve the functionality of those files. But in the hands of the bad actor, they can be used to incorporate malware into those files. So when you're thinking about zero trust, you can't just stop it at the you can't just tick the box of saying, well, we've segmented the networks, we've used microsegmentation, or we've ensured that this type of protocol, which is insecure, is blocked. You've got to think about what is actually being presented to the software application, or when a parser, some file that's going to interpret, say, a PDF, open that file onto your desktop. When it looks at the visual layer, and everything that sits beneath that file, how is it going to then behave when it actually interacts with that software that might be contained in the file? But also, and this is probably something that many people don't necessarily think about, the actual structures that exist in say a PDF or an Excel file. So I already referenced, the visual layer that you and I would be familiar with when we open, say, an Excel file. But then there's the structural layer beneath that effectively the computer sees and interacts with and understands and is able to model, so it can represent all the structures in that document, including how the formulas will interact in that Excel document. And if they become malformed or corrupted, and if the bad actor knows how they can corrupt those different entities, those objects, then you can then cause the underlying software, the operating system, let's say Microsoft Excel, to misbehave. And then in terms of in a security context, then that might be a kind of a foothold into penetrating and breaching that environment. So Glasswall's dedicated to thinking about the data, the threats that exist in those files, and to kind of strip out those threats without having to detect the threats themselves. So that's effectively what our mission is all about.
I mean, that was a whole journey, right? I love that sort of beginnings of zero trust, looking at the microsegmentation or the network segmentation. You kind of you didn't really directly talk about identity, but that's implied there, who has access to what and how you verify before they have access. Then you went to application security and looking at how the application interprets the data, how the data is served up, and how you can have kind of a zero trust structure there. And then lastly, the file. And it is one of those things, bless John Kindervag for this gift, that really it spans across every aspect. You can look at it from network, you can look at it from application, you can look at it from identity, you can look at it from files or documents. So that was a great journey. Thank you for that sort of history lesson / where we are today, which I think was terrific. Yeah, really appreciate that. And the other thing that I really think is fascinating is how, this kind of effort around file security, or looking into the structure of the file in order to prevent 0 days, how that intersects with your partnership, for example, with Reversing Labs or any company in the threat intelligence space. And that's something I wanted to sort of tease out, if you will, like how does having the 40 billion pieces of threat intelligence that a Reversing Labs has, how does that help you in your effort to clean and serve up documents that will block any kind of 0 day?
Yeah, so I'll address how we can be complementary with say a threat intelligence company such as Reversing Labs. But if I maybe just start with I guess the philosophy that when Glasswall was first born, I think it was around about 2005. That's when we started to file our first patents, and then started to develop the technology. The assumption, though, and we weren't really talking about zero trust at that moment in time, but we figured out that if we understood the schematics, the blueprints of a file, so what's allowed to exist in that file and what's not, and we are fairly strict with think about those malformations, those constructs that could exist in the structural layer. If we ensure that an object only has so many characters or is a certain size, then we can ensure bit by bit that every part of that file keeps its integrity, is not malformed. It's probably going to actually open more efficiently when you've removed errors that have been incorporated in the file over time. And certainly you're going to kick out the issues that perhaps the bad actor has intentionally injected into those files. And so key to being able to do that is to have a specification for the file. And PDFs and Office documents have internationally recognized specifications. Furthermore, a variety of different security researchers, not least the NSA from the US, but also agencies closer to home here in the UK, have actually provided guidance as to the threats that they see in files, and specifically the techniques that can be used to address certain vulnerabilities in the different file formats. So with all of that information, that allows us then to be able to effectively to kind of create a rule set as to what we allow in that file and what we're going to kick out. So that really kind of just to labor that point around zero trust. You're not having to be arbitrary or subjective in that respect, and don't think about us taking a judgment on the visual layer, because we ensure that the visual layer is preserved pixel perfect. So you'll see no difference whatsoever.
Well, that's great, Paul. Thanks for all of that. Lots to discuss there, and certainly you know your stuff. Christina, was there anything else that we hadn't covered in the topic of the discussion on zero trust, or shall we?
No, I think actually this is terrific, Paul. I think we've taken a good amount of your time. We really appreciate you coming on, and I learned a lot. Certainly, I've studied zero trust for 15 years, however long it's been around, right? But looking at it from the file integrity perspective is something I haven't done until maybe now. And so thank you so much for the education and giving our listeners something to chew on about it. And we hope to have you back on. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks,
well,
Paul.
Thank you, Christina. Thank you, Rory.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, we should probably close the show out then, Christina, but as usual, there's a few things we'd like to tell our listeners before we finish.
Yeah, we'd love your feedback. Tell us what you think about the guest we had on, about our chit-chat, about the news that we've picked up. if we got too silly or not too silly enough. So please let us know. If you would rather not email us, you can leave us a voicemail, 90 seconds maximum, and we would share that voicemail if it's not too spicy. So please do consider leaving us a voicemail at speakpipe.com/cyber_sidekicks. Or, Rory, they can email us,
yes.
Right?
Yes, exactly. You can join the 20th century by using email to contact us. And that would be
20th century.
Exactly.
It's true.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it is. It's 20th century. It's not 21st
I know.
century.
It's was it Boomer Communications or something, I think they call it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's Christina, which is Christina Richmond, which is Christina at richmondadvisorygroup.com, and me, Rory, so that's Rory at richmondadvisorygroup.com. Other means are available. I'm sure a carrier pigeon would work.
It would eventually, get to us. Send us a satellite message through Starlink. We might get it someday. The other providers are available. Thank you so much for listening this week. We really appreciate you. You guys are the reason we keep showing up to have these very interesting educational chats, and also the reason we get a little silly at times. We appreciate you.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody, and we look forward to you tuning in again next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So my paper is the wrong way around. Here it is. It was upside down. It's the right way up now. So yes, excuse me. Yeah, Christina, there was a... I know, this is going from bad to worse.
Okay, start again.
Yeah. You're not allowed to laugh, though. If you laugh, I shall mute you from this end. Oh, it's a blessed quietness. Oh, I've muted you. Oh no, it's fine. I can mute you from this end. It's great. I have absolute control.
You do have absolute control. Can I mute you? No, I can't.
No, you can't.